Inching closer to Election Day, candidates give it a final push with their Meeting de Avance. That's in Tondo, Manila on Saturday. Labor leader Leody de Guzman and running mate Walden Bello, along with their senatorial slate, held their Meeting de Avance at the Quezon Memorial Circle last night. De Guzman's camp decided to hold it earlier to avoid clashing with other candidates. De Guzman says he has accepted that he still lags behind in surveys, but he believes he has won in terms of getting his message across to a wider audience. The event was their last grand rally, but De Guzman says they will continue to campaign until Saturday. Meanwhile, survey frontrunner Bongbong Marcos kicked off his Meeting de Avance in Iloilo province on Tuesday for the Visayas leg before culminating his campaign in Parañaque on Saturday. Marcos is holding another Meeting de Avance, this time in Mindanao. Well, we bring you now to Tagum City in Davao del Norte, where Marcos and his running mate Sara Duterte are meeting their supporters. This is their fourth visit to the province, where the governor and the congressman support Marcos's arch-rival Leni Robredo. Our correspondent Rex Remito has the latest.
It's been raining and drizzling here in Tagum City. People, however, are braving the weather, waiting for Marcos and Duterte. Protected by raincoats and umbrellas, they were chanting they were not paid to be here. Some of them have been here for hours, with busloads and truckloads of people trooping to the City Hall grounds since this morning. Traffic has been heavy around the area. Some featured artists are entertaining the crowd as they patiently wait for the tandem. People brought with them their hopes for a better future under a Marcos presidency. The Marcos camp, meanwhile, denies it chose Davao del Norte as a show of force against Governor Edwin Jubahib and 1st District Representative Bebot Alvarez. Both Jubahib and Alvarez have recently pledged their support to Robredo. This time, Marcos is seeking to carry Davao del Norte and the entire Davao region, where he lost big time to Senator Alan Peter Cayetano when they both ran for Vice President in 2016. In the latest Pulse Asia survey, however, Marcos is leading here with 92 points against Robredo's 1 point. Critics and some statisticians have been calling out the pollster for some flaws in the design of its survey. Some analysts say Sara Duterte has been instrumental in helping boost Marcos's campaign, especially in Mindanao. Whether or not it will help him win the presidency, we will know by Monday. Rex Remito, CNN Philippines, Davao del Norte.
Well, Marcos retains his wide lead over Vice President Leni Robredo in the latest and final pre-election survey released by Okta Research. Marcos got 58% of voter preference, which is 1 point above his rating in February. Robredo saw a 3-point increase and got 25%. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno remained in third place with 8%, unlike in the Pulse Asia survey where Senator Manny Pacquiao overtook him. Pacquiao got 5%. Senator Ping Lacson rounded up the top 5 with 2%. Over to the vice presidential survey, Sara Duterte is still in the lead with 56%, trailing behind our Senate President Tito Soto with 22%, Senator Kiko Pangilinan 16%, Doc Willie Ong 4%, and Representative Lito Atienza 1%. Unlike in the Pulse Asia survey, Atienza did not fall to 6th place. We'll break down these numbers with Okta Research fellow Guido David on News.ph tonight at 7. President Duterte declares May 9, Monday, a special non-working holiday for the national and local elections. A proclamation signed by the president states there is a need to declare the elections a holiday to enable the public to properly exercise their right to vote amid public health measures brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. The worst is yet to come in the war in Eastern Europe, with Ukrainians bracing for what could be a turning point in the months-long Russian invasion. Russia denies plans to declare an all-out war on May 9th. As Ukraine stands its ground, it will not surrender an inch of its land. Tristan Odalo reports.
Nearly 3 months into the Russian invasion of Ukraine, there are no signs of backing down in the attacks. Some Western countries warn that Russia may take their military operations to the next level on May 9th, a special holiday in Moscow commemorating its victory in the Second World War.
There may be a big announcement by the Russian president on the 9th of May, Russian leadership to escalate the conflict to a different level. We are prepared for that. Our country has been in a state of war for the past 8 years. So we are prepared for all kinds of scenarios, and we are ready to continue defending every inch of our land.
Ukrainian Ambassador Alexander Nechitailo is currently in Manila for a short visit to express his country's gratitude to the Philippines for its continuous support and discuss how the two nations could further help each other. He also explained why Filipinos should care about what's happening in Ukraine despite its distance.
The increase of price for the food, staple food, the violation of international law, the world will become more volatile.
Some 11 million people have been displaced since the war in Ukraine broke out, now viewed as the largest humanitarian crisis since the World War II in Europe.
If Ukraine falls, then definitely the conflict will spread to other parts, not just in Europe, probably maybe in other parts of the world as well. Philippines has been very consistent supporting us in the international organization, in the UN and other international fora.
While there's no end in sight just yet, the Ukrainian official believes Moscow cannot sustain the war for years.
The major turnaround or breakthrough on the battlefield will happen in the next 4 to 6 weeks. We are talking about perhaps months, not years.
President Rodrigo Duterte has been consistently expressing fears over the possibility of a nuclear war.
And even this rocos in Ukraine, magdasal lang tayo na it will not degenerate into something like a nuclear warfare. Tapos tayo. Tapos tayong lahat.
There are two aspects of the ongoing talks between Ukraine and Russia. One is humanitarian, while the other one is military and defense. Ukraine insists they're not after a short-term ceasefire, but for a long-term settlement of the conflict. But reaching a deal for now remains uncertain. Tristan Udalo, CNN Philippines.
Coming up, the World Health Organization is sounding the alarm on the rapid spike in cases in South Africa because of 2 new Omicron subvariants. And we're learning more about the much-awaited album of K-pop superstars BTS. Details right here on CNN Philippines.
LG OLED Evo.
Welcome back. The Philippines' outstanding debt climbs to a new high in March at 12.68 trillion pesos. The amount exceeds the 12.9 trillion peso record set in February. The Treasury Bureau explains the government incurred more loans amid the health crisis. Inflation also rose to 4.9% in April, up from 4% the month before. This is the fastest since December 2018, when the rate was at 5.2%. Food, transportation, housing, water, and power top the sources of quicker inflation. Meanwhile, Meralco vows to comply with the order of the Energy Regulatory Commission to refund 7.75 billion pesos in overcharges to residential customers this month. The amount is equivalent to 46 pesos and 69 centavos per kilowatt hour. Each customer will get a 93 peso refund for a 200 kilowatt hour consumption. In COVID-19 headlines, the World Health Organization raises the alarm over 2 Omicron subvariants causing a spike in infections in South Africa, while health officials here at home are racing against time to determine whether the more infectious variants have spread in the community. More from Caroline Bonkin.
From over 20 million COVID-19 cases weekly in January, only nearly 4 million per week have been reported worldwide in April. Weekly deaths now also at the lowest since March 2 years ago. But the World Health Organization warns
these trends, while welcome, don't tell the full story.
infections in South Africa yet again on the rise, and the culprits, 2 offshoots of the Omicron variant, BA.4 and BA.5. South African scientists found these can evade antibodies from previous infection and could spark a new wave, but less likely among vaccinated people.
It's too soon to know whether these new subvariants can cause more severe disease than other Omicron subvariants. But early data suggests vaccination remains protective against severe disease and death. This is another sign that the pandemic is not done with us.
He points out vaccines, antiviral treatments, and testing are crucial, as well as genome sequencing, a way to check infected persons for variants. He says countries that stop sequencing are blind to how the virus is mutating.
We don't know what's coming next.
Here at home, while sequencing goes down as cases decline, the Philippine Genome Center continues checking samples for variants. Among the next batch, samples from 14 infected foreign travelers and a local crew from Palawan. While waiting for the results, health authorities in Puerto Princesa City are backtracking their itinerary, citing possibility some might have been infected before traveling to Palawan. They arrived on April 23rd. 2 of the tourists had fever after 2 days.
Galing talaga sa labas kasi nakita mo naman na within 2 days pa lang bago nag-symptoms. Mabuti na lang ito, ma'am, kasi meron silang antigen test, di ba? So, tinest nila yun. What if kung doon sa mga other areas na meron palang ubo, may mga sipon-sipon, ay hindi natitest, yun ang mahirap, madadali talaga tayo.
Local health authorities now asking tour operators, hotel and resort owners help in monitoring possible infections. This includes checking visitors for symptoms and testing them when needed. Palanca says most of the COVID cases in Puerto Princesa City this past weeks involved tourists. Caroline Bonkin, CNN Philippines.
Candidates make their final push on the campaign trail with just 4 days to go before the Filipino votes. Vice President Leni Robredo got a warm welcome from supporters in the city of Osamis in Misamis Occidental. She and her running mate, Senator Kiko Pangilinan, got the support of 200 clergy, religious, and consecrated persons from the Archdiocese of Cebu today. The group says the tandem embodies the church's values such as integrity and concern for the marginalized. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno received a warm welcome from supporters in the town of Sogod in southern Leyte. Senator Manny Pacquiao visited the town of San Remigio in the country's most vote-rich province, Cebu. He was supposed to be there at 9 in the morning and kept supporters waiting for hours until his arrival late this afternoon. Senator Ping Lacson and running mate Sen President Tito Soto are in the city of Cagayan de Oro, their final stop in Mindanao before the elections.
I've been in government for 50 years or so. No, if I don't make it, then ang iniisip ko lagi, yung peace and quiet are 2 of the most precious rewards ng buhay ng tao. So I'll retire and live in peace, live quietly. I-delete ko na lahat yung mga pangalan nyo sa contact list ko para wala na tayong contact. If I make it, I'm prepared, I'm ready to serve for another 6 years.
Independent presidential candidate Ernie Abella and Vice Presidential bet Manny Lopez take the stage at the third round of the Commission on Elections and the Kapisanan ng mga Broadcaster ng Pilipinas Forum. As Chrissy Di Matulak tells us, one of them vows to prioritize vaccination for senior citizens despite not being inoculated himself.
Simplify access to loans to help small businesses and individuals recover from the pandemic. This is one of the solutions offered by Vice Presidential candidate Manny Lopez for economic recovery during the third salvo of COMELEC KBP Pilipinas Forum. According to Lopez, an economist, the country has enough funds for micro, small, and medium enterprises, which make up 90% of the country's business population. The problem, he said, is the stringent process involved in lending money to firms and individuals. Lopez is also batting for low-interest loans with easy terms for those affected by the pandemic.
Ito po will be a loan program that will allow struggling firms and business enterprises and individuals para maka-access sa ating mga loan programs. Dahil available naman po ang pera, dahil ito ay provided for ng Bayanihan Act 1 and 2. However, the billions are just lying out there because, hindi ma-access because of the stringent requirements of the commercial banks.
Former presidential spokesperson and now presidential candidate Ernesto Abella also faced the panelists. Both Abella and Lopez aim to strengthen the agricultural sector.
We can come up with one of the agriculture mega industry. One among other things, what we'd like to do is to be able to partner, let's say, with IPs in order to be able to make sure that, for example, we can effectively come into a partnership with them so that we can have plantations for trees, fruit, timber.
Karamihan po ng ating mga mamamayan ay reliant sa agriculture. Kaya yan po ay bigyan natin ng mas magandang mga solusyon, hindi lang budgetary allocation.
Abella admits that he has yet to receive his COVID-19 vaccine.
Secretary, bakunado na ho ba kayo?
I have natural immunity.
Despite this, Abella assured that vaccination will be among his top priorities, especially for senior citizens. Lopez, the only vice presidential candidate without a running mate, admits he has yet to decide on his pick for president. While Abella says if he wins the presidency, he will continue many of the programs of the current administration. Chrissy Di Matulak, CNN Philippines.
Catch presidential candidates Manny Pacquiao, Jose Montemayor Jr., and Vice Presidential bet Rizalito David at the COMELEC KBP Forum tomorrow at 10 and 11 in the morning here on CNN Philippines. With Mother's Day and the elections just around the corner, we pay tribute to single moms and their hopes for better leaders and a brighter future for their children. Stanley Gahete has this report on sectors on the sidelines.
Walang pwedeng tumulong sa'yo as a single mom, kundi sarili mo lang.
For 35-year-old Arlene Peralta, being a single mother is a tough job. Arlene is a virtual assistant for a US client, a transcriber, and an online seller. She's into multitasking 24/7 to give her children a better life.
Very challenging siya in a way that I need to act as a tatay and a nanay. Tapos minsan maiiyak ka na lang at the end of the day dahil sobrang busy ko. Am I doing a great job para sa kanila as a mom?
And if life wasn't bad enough, she began experiencing stereotyping and discrimination.
It's the outside. Yun yung mapaghusga na kaya yan iniwan kasi pumasok sa maling relasyon at first.
Arlene got more disappointed when a government agency rejected her loan application.
So yun, bakit po kayo single? Paano po to? Yung mga bata, dependent na po ba siya ng tatay o baka ma-double dependent? I think you should know how to approach, like us, the status that we have. Kasi hindi rin naman namin ginusto na gantong status. Kaya nga kami humihingi ng aid or assistance.
It's the same story for Jeneline Resuello, who was also denied the social services she sorely needed.
3 years ago, I tried to have a loan, housing Hindi nila ako gustong ipagpalunan kasi they were asking for my husband.
Despite doing her best for her family, Jeneline knew that she has limitations and couldn't provide everything to her children.
Hindi pa rin madali ang maging single parent kasi sa paglaki nila, they should be guided well. Diba? Hindi naman po pwedeng iasa mo sa ibang tao yung pagpapalaki sa kanila.
The two single mothers realize how government and society unfairly treats them, especially regarding social services.
So, mahirap kasi hindi ako nakakapag-move talaga freely in this society. Hindi ako nakakapag-move na gawin ko ano yung pwede at nararapat para sa mga bata.
Parang na-discriminate ako somehow na dahil ba single mom ako, ganyan na. Hindi ba pwedeng mas dapat proud kayo sa akin kasi as a single person.
There are more than 4 million single female household heads based on government data. Single parents believe that they should get more social services considering that they are the only ones earning for the family.
They're not trying to deepen yung connection sa mga single mom na tulad namin.
With the elections coming, Arlene and Jeneline want to know how the next administration will help them provide a more decent life for their families, and how the next leaders can help change society's view toward all single mothers who deserve much better recognition. Stanley Guete, CNN Philippines.
Get the numbers and updates in real time on Election Day. CNN Philippines full coverage of the May 9 polls begins 5 in the morning. Join the conversation by following our social media accounts at CNN Philippines.
Their next set of leaders who will represent their hope for a better future.
A number of incidents of violence in Negros Oriental. A hand grenade went off in Barangay Banawe in Pamplona town earlier today. Initial police reports saying an unidentified suspect lobbed the explosive past midnight inside the garage of Barangay Chairman Dante Rodriguez's home. No one was hurt, but the explosion damaged his car and motorcycle. In Bukidnon, one person was killed and another wounded after a heated argument among supporters of rival local candidates in Pangantucan town on Wednesday. It is unclear from which side opened fire, but local police are investigating if this is an election-related incident. And in Cotabato, authorities looking into an explosion in Cotabato City Wednesday evening. Police say two persons threw a grenade at the back of a motorboat owned by a certain Datu Manot Sinsuat, a resident of Datu Blasinsuat, Maguindanao. No one was hurt. The Joint Task Group Cotabato condemns the incident and calls it a terror act. In other news now, President Duterte has named Lieutenant General Vicente Danao Jr. as officer in charge of the Philippine National Police effective Sunday, May 8. Danao, the current head of the PNP directorial staff, will replace General Jonard Carlos, who will retire on the eve of Election Day. Carlos served as PNP chief for only 6 months. Prior to his new appointment, Danao held other top posts, including police chief of Davao City, Calabarzon, and the National Capital Region. Straight ahead, the highlights of a packed opener for the UAAP women's volleyball with two fierce rivals, Ateneo and La Salle, and find out who are suiting up for Gilas Pilipinas for this year's Southeast Asian Games. Stay tuned to CNN Philippines.
PG Party List sa Sangamo, balot 108 iboto. PG Party List, boses natin sa Kongreso. PG Party List sa Sangamo, balot 108 iboto. PG Party List, basic to atin to. Let's all vote mga kapatid po. PG Party List, PG stands for basic goods sa balota 108. Kabuhayan pang-asenso para sa lahat. This is our goal and our advocacy. PG Party List for you and me. PG Party List sa Sangamo, balot 108 iboto. PG Party List, boses na Our 108 civilian realize the projects we dreamed of. BG Party List, vote 108 na. BG Party List, sasangga mo, balot 108 iboto. BG Party List, boses natin sa Kongreso. BG Party List, sasangga mo, balot 108 iboto. BG Party List, basic to, atin to. BG Party List, atin to.
This is a paid advertisement paid for by Donnie Q. Tampan, 599 Narciso Street.
SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement. Gama sa Davao, para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement. Ato ni Bay. SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement. Gama sa Davao, para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement. Ato ni Bay.
Ako po si Gringo Anasan. Itinatag natin ang school feeding program. Palalawakin natin ito upang ang pagkain para sa feeding program ay magmumula sa produkto ng ating magsasaka na may garantiyang bibilhin ng ating gobyerno. Automatic na pagbaba ng buwis sa langis at pagsugpo sa smuggling ay ating ipatutupad. Self-sufficiency sa bawat bayan ang magbibigay ng trabaho para sa lahat. Gringo Anasan po, number 33 sa Senado.
Political is paid for by Gringo Anasan, 901.
Welcome back to CNN Philippines Sports News now. UAAP women's volleyball matches began today with Ateneo and LaSalle reigniting their rivalry on the hard court. The game is underway. LaSalle has taken 2 sets and the team leads the 4th set, now 24-20. The Lady Eagles officially adopted the name Blue Eagles today in the university's effort to unify all Ateneo teams regardless of gender or sport. And in basketball, the list of Gilas Pilipinas players for the 31st Southeast Asian Games in Vietnam is out. Here looking at the names of 12 athletes set to defend the country's gold medal in the Vietnam meet. The list includes the brothers Ravenna, Kiefer, and 30, as well as Junmar Fajardo. In a post, Coach Chot Reyes explained the absence of some popular names in the lineup, including Robert Bolick, who flew to the U.S. to be with his ailing father. And now for BTS Army's details on the group's much-awaited new album have been revealed. Its title, Proof, will be an anthology. With this, fans can expect a collection of the K-pop group's previous tracks, some remixes, plus 3 new songs. Proof comes out on June 10th. And before we go, with the May 9 elections drawing near, what should we keep in mind when we cast our ballots? Poll watchdogs NAMFREL and PPCRV joined me on Politics as Usual on Tuesday to remind voters of common mistakes to avoid, like slashing instead of shading the oval beside your candidates' names.
Vote early and to bring a código so that they can also fill up their ballots quickly. Let's respect the will of the people.
Don't take the privilege for granted. Please go out and vote. Discern your votes well. It will affect the next 6 years of your life. PPCRV and all our volunteers, 500,000 of them will be with you at the precincts to support and hold a clean, honest, accurate, meaningful, and peaceful election.
Voting is open from 6 in the morning to 7 in the evening on Monday, May 9. Again, tune in to CNN Philippines' full coverage of Election Day beginning 5 a.m. And that is it for now. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
RPN, Radio Philippines Network Incorporated, DXKO. 13.68 sa dial sa inyong radyo. RPN DXKO, ang Radyo Ronda dili sa Dakbayan sa Cagayan de Oro. Sibiyahan na may galaon sa katawan, andam mo serbisyo sa tanan. Ang RPN DXKO Radyo Ronda sakop sa KBP, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Down to the last 27 days, the Filipino votes campaigns are working extra hard, winning some and losing some. There is a mad scramble for the votes of overseas Filipinos. Social media is king, and politics has gotten into the sports mix in UAAP basketball. All these tonight on Politics as Usual, your weekly political appointment fix. Good evening, I'm Pia Ontiveros. The pandemic forced many of us to go digital. How will this help shape the way the Filipino votes? The president of the Public Relations Society of the Philippines, Harold Geronimo, joins us now live via Zoom. Hi, Harold. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. Well, let's begin with this. You know, you have this a very interesting presentation, and we're going to be showing the slides that you did present, and we're going to go through them and make things as clear as possible for the viewers. This is something we're all familiar with, but it's good for us to do a little review every now and then in light of the elections that are happening in less than 30 days. So, Harold, you're making a case for how the pandemic created a shift in how people consume media and information.
Yes. Actually, this is the latest study of Kantar Philippines. And I was also very amazed now with how they've discovered, the rise of social media really affecting the way we form opinions, especially among the Gen Zs and millennials. So during the pandemic, it totally changed the way we really consume media, and people have shifted their attention towards digital, not just because of the pandemic, but because of the closure of, one of the biggest stations as well, TV stations as well. So a lot of people shifted to digital. They went into social media, and this also allowed a lot of media companies to also shift to digital as well. So they're not only on television, but they're also on digital streaming, and they're also on YouTube and Facebook. Just like CNN Philippines, this is being aired live on Facebook as well. So this totally changed the way we behave, especially among young people nowadays. Pia, very important discovery I got now from that study is that pre-pandemic, there were only around 3 million users of TikTok, or 2 to 3 million users of TikTok in the Philippines. But after the pandemic, or during the pandemic, it actually shifted to 36 million. So it increased to 36 million. So such a very huge increase in the number of TikTok users in the Philippines. And it is now one of the largest social media platforms where Filipinos are hooked to, especially the younger ones.
Yeah.
And recently, if you try to look at TikTok, if you're in TikTok, Pia, you'll be able to see that a lot of candidates are actually using TikTok to be able to reach out to a lot of young electorates.
Harold, you've gotten ahead of us already, but let's go back to TikTok in a while. And no, I'm not on TikTok. Nakakayang aminin. But it's interesting also because in a country where there are so many social media users, so many people are on social media. And yet we have a problem with the internet, signal, Wi-Fi, etc., connection. We're not, there are ang daming lugar, lalo na yung mga liblib na lugar na wala namang kuryente. And yet, ang tawag nga sa atin, social media capital of the world.
Yeah. Yes, actually, even those people in rural areas, they go to the malls, they go to public areas where there's free Wi-Fi just to have connection. So that's how addicted, if I call it, a lot of us, especially the younger generation, are just to have signal, just to have network connection. They go to places where there is free Wi-Fi. So that's the reality now. Young people, I think, we're talking about the younger generation, the Gen Zs, the millennials, those who are 18 to 40 years old. they just couldn't live without the internet.
Okay. So, syempre yung shift during the pandemic to social media, etc., led to a very sharp decline, no, in television viewership, right, Harold? And as a matter of fact, even if, like you were saying earlier, no, because there are people who watch us on Facebook, but they're not watching us on television, right? Can you talk to us about those numbers?
Yeah, actually, it's there has been a huge decline, no, on people watching television, mainly because during the pandemic, I think a lot of people were just so bored, and a lot of people are hooked to the internet. They're doing work from home arrangements, e-learning for students, so they're on the internet all the time. All they have to do is shift from one platform to another and be able to get the news information that they need straight from the internet. So television became somehow, just a plain accessory that they don't really use it anymore. In fact, a lot of people saved a lot of electricity during this time because they were not able to use their television sets. No, but I can still say that this also allowed, as I've mentioned earlier, all the television networks to also be shifting to digital. And I think this is a very important milestone for the Philippine broadcasting industry, that every media company, not just television, but also print media, they are already multimedia. So they're not just a single media company, but a multimedia company.
Pati radio, di ba? Ang laki ng pinagbago.
Pati radio, here in Metro Manila, there has been a decrease in the number of listeners to radio, but in the provinces, no. Surprisingly, in Cebu and Davao, there has been an increase in the number of listeners for FM radio. You know why? Because as students, do e-learning activities, and while people are on work from home, that penchant for listening to FM radio has been, so peculiar to the provinces, particularly in Cebu and Davao. They've been listening to radio while doing e-learning and while doing work from home. Surprisingly, in those regions, FM radio listening has increased.
Harold, let's talk very quickly now about itong more detalye sa itong shift to social media. So nabanggit mo na kanina, TikTok for example, in 2019 2 million, biglang naging 36 million. Wow, all those people on TikTok. And then so many different social media sites. But talk to us also about the quality of the output. Hindi lang yung number of posts, di ba? Hindi lang yung number of reactions, number of likes, etc. And then there's also other, what do you call them, apps? There's Kumu. What is this? Bigo? Ano yun? Bigo.
Yeah.
What's
These
that?
are
Bigo sa
actually
pag-ibig. What?
Social media community platforms, they use this to also interact. Actually, with the rise of these new platforms, Pia, you will be able to see that the real celebrities now among the young people are not those they watch on television, but those who are on these social media platforms. Imagine on TikTok, for example, you have a user with 20-25 million viewers,
right,
per follower, diba? So, and what do? They just dance there, they talk,
they sing,
just engage,
anything, yeah.
And they create their own content. So it's like having their own television station and broadcasting what they want to broadcast any time of the day. And people are watching them, especially young people, and they get engagements. People comment, and people believe in them in a way that even if what they're wearing, what they like, what brands they use, people are just going crazy over those brands. So it's really different. It's a totally different world. TikTok, I think, is one of the fastest growing platforms in the Philippines today, especially for the younger ones. And mind you, even the quite older ones, Gen Z kasi tayo we're on the
okay.
Gen X, we're on the Gen X, di ba? Gen X, Generation X tayo. Yeah. But on the Gen Z and millennials, you'll be able to see that there are also a lot of older ones who are now trying to get into TikTok. So
Okay.
they see the importance of that.
All right, Harold, let's go now into your final words. There are takeaways that you list down in your presentation. So very quickly now, let's go into that. At the same time, address this. No, you speak to this also because it's very strange. No, that the very thing that we thought kept us apart before the pandemic, which is technology, the internet, social media, is exactly what is keeping us together. Also, what are your thoughts when it comes to the elections? Syempre, di ba? Ang laking bagay ng social media influence when it comes to how the Filipino is going to vote. So, final words, Harry.
Yeah, 52% of our electorate are actually millennials and Gen Zs. They're from the age group of 18 to 40 years old. So that's more than 30 million voters. And as early as 2 years, 3 years ago in 2018, 2019, I have seen a lot of candidates using the different social media platforms to be able to manipulate mindsets among the young people. And that is what we see right now. That is what we see in terms of the results of how young people would think about candidates. And it might be too late if the candidates are going into these social media platforms right now, because the brainwashing happened like 2 to 3 years ago. So social media, digital media indeed would really make or break, candidates at this time. So it's very crucial that wherever you come out, whoever you tap, not just celebrities, but also influencers. This is a very crucial time for you to be able to really utilize social media so well. Social media platforms really play a very important role in terms of shaping their minds. And it might be too late for some, but at least now we have a certain percentage of a big chunk of undecided ones, no? And we might be able to use social media to somehow persuade them towards the right choices.
All right, Harold Geronimo, President of the Public Relations Society of the Philippines, PRSP. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you again. Up next on Politics as Usual, overseas voting kicking off this week. How is the turnout and situation in polling precincts? We'll speak to COMELEC Commissioner Marlon Casquejo next. Welcome back. This is Politics as Usual. I'm Pia Ontiveros. It is day 3 of the month-long voting period for Filipinos abroad. Most foreign posts have hit the ground running, but others have been marred by delays. We bring in our COMELEC reporter, Melissa Lopez, with the details because overseas Filipinos voting in droves in embassies and consulates around the world. But like we said, there have been quite a few hiccups. Melissa, what can you tell us? All right, we have a little bit of an audio problem with Mel Lopez there. We're going to speak first. Can we have Mel now? All right, are we going to go to Commissioner Casquejo first? All right, let's go back to Mel now. Mel?
Pia, at least 4 of 92 foreign posts have yet to open for voting for our kababayans abroad as of today. The month-long voting period should have started at last Sunday, April 10, for 1.7 million Filipinos, but logistical issues forced the Philippine embassies in New Zealand and in Timor-Leste to push back voting, as well as in posts in Shanghai, China, and in Milan, and Italy, to push back overseas voting. Poll materials finally arrived at the embassy in Pakistan, but voting there started a day late. In New York, mail-in ballots were sent beginning Monday night for Filipinos living in the northeast states of the U.S. Over in Hong Kong, the consul's office had to double the number of precincts for over 93,000 voters as day one of voting.
An ongoing surge in COVID-19 cases there. By Tuesday, lines were shorter and the consulate hopes Filipinos in the area will come out to vote on weekdays to lessen the weekend crowd. Meanwhile, the Comelec and Bank is set to investigate the incident in Singapore where voter Cheryl Abundo was given a used ballot when she tried to vote Monday morning. She was given a replacement and was allowed to vote, an incident confirmed by the embassy. Commissioner George Garcia cites human error as the possible culprit.
This thing should have not happened at all. Of course, a single incident like this can create a doubt as to the integrity of the entire process.
There was a similar report of a voter also getting a pre-shaded ballot in Dubai, but the Philippine Post there denied that such an incident happened. Despite these hitches, Election Steering Committee Head Commissioner Marlon Casquejo described the start of overseas voting as generally peaceful and successful. Back to you, Pia.
Mel, can you tell us first about this? You know, right before the show came on air, you were saying that there was a little bit of a quarrel or a misunderstanding in the Comelec and Bank about the gun ban.
That's right, Pia. A few minutes before we went to air, the Office of Commissioner Socorro Inting confirmed that she has resigned from the chairmanship of the gun ban committee. That is a reaction, or actually, she said it was a protest after the members of the NBank voted 4-3. She was among those dissenting to give Chairman Saidamen Pangarungan that power, special power to grant gun ban exemptions at will as long as it was supposed to be meritorious and urgent. Now she says that rendered her committee useless, so she's stepping down immediately. Pia.
Right, Melissa Lopez reporting live from Comelec headquarters in Manila. Let's speak now to the Commissioner in charge of the overseas voting, Marlon Casquejo. Commissioner Casquejo, magandang gabi po sa inyo. Isa-isahin po lang natin yung mga lugar na may report ng pre-shaded ballot. How many pre-shaded ballots, sir, were there in Singapore? Isa lang po ba?
Well, as reported by the Singapore PE, yung ating congen doon, only one pre-shaded ballots were reported. And it's not a pre-shaded ballot, but it's a spoiled ballot that was used in the opening of the polls on Sunday when a certain voter voted, but the ballot was declared spoiled for some other reasons. Then it was reported and it was recorded in the minutes of voting. And it so happened on the following day, it was erroneously or inadvertently given again to the said voter, and that's why there was a complaint of so-called pre-shaded ballots. But then again, it's not a pre-shaded ballot, it's a spoiled ballot.
And that is the truth. We're not, in other words, we're not making up this story just so that we can feel better about our voting overseas. No? So totoo po yung sinasabi ninyo at sinasabi po ng Singapore officials natin na spoiled ballot on Sunday.
Yes, that was a spoiled ballot when a certain voter got it and it was declared as spoiled for some other reasons. Then it should have been separated in the good ballots.
Yes.
But
What is the
somehow inadvertently it was again given to a certain voter. But even if it was given to a certain voter, that ballot cannot be read because it's already declared as spoiled.
Oo. What is the SOP, sir? Kanina sabi po niyo set aside. Pero kapag may spoiled ballot, is it just set aside, put in a separate, is there a separate envelope for it? Para hindi na masama sa mga bagong balota yung mga gagamitin? Because
Yes,
syempre, mag-iisip kayo para bang, ba't ganun nangyari? Paano naman nangyari yon?
Well, that is the correct procedure. Once the ballot is declared spoiled, it will be separated in a separate envelope, and at the back of which will the chairman of the Special Board of Election Inspector should mark it as spoiled ballot. And it was properly, the procedure was properly done, and even it was recorded in the minutes of voting and counting.
Okay. But at least we're not going to have to go through, because I was going to ask you if you're going to tell me na oo nga spoiled pre-shaded ballot. I was going to ask you if we could go through the chain of custody para malaman po natin saan doon yung milagro. But anyway, so you're saying that. All right. But you're saying, sir, isa lang po yan, and there is no other case of a pre-shaded ballot or a spoiled ballot in the Singapore PE, in the consulate.
That is correct. It's an isolated case. Isa lang po, only one incident that was reported to the Office for Overseas Voting.
All right. What about Dubai, sir? What happened there?
Come again? Pia?
Dubai? They came out with a statement saying no such incident marred or is marring the voting there.
I didn't get the question.
Dubai, sir. What is happening in Dubai?
Okay. In Dubai, there was a report also, but as I asked or confer with the Dubai PE, there's no such incident and there was no such complaint regarding that one. The procedure, if any voter were able to get a pre-shaded ballot, he or she must report it immediately to the chairman of the SBI for the replacement of the ballot. But as I asked and confirmed with the SBI chairman of Dubai, there was no such incident or reported to them.
New York City, sir. What is the situation there? May problema po ba? May delay or something? What is going on?
Yes, there was a delay in the delivery of the materials, but as we all know, New York City is applying or using the postal voting. According to New York, as I talked to them just this morning during their town hall meeting, they are now mailing the mailing packet beginning today because the ballots and the other materials just arrived this morning.
Delays in delivery, sir, meaning from Manila to New York, or is it within New York? And problema na lang ng consulate doon yung pagpapadala to Filipino voters?
Yes, yun na lang po. They will be sending now the mailing packets to the overseas voters.
Okay, so there was no delay in the delivery from us, from the Philippines to the US? None?
From the Philippines, it was delivered as early as March 31, but it passed through something like in some area, in some country, and then from that country going to New York. So that was the cause of delay.
Mm-hmm. Sana lang that was taken into consideration, sir, no, para walang any further delay, meaning we should be working backwards. But anyway, thank you so much, COMELEC Commissioner Marlon Casqueo. And sir, wala na pong ibang reklamo in any other post, any other embassy or any other consulate in the Philippines, in any part of the world?
Well, so far, wala na po. With regards to Hong Kong, we already approved as chair of, as the commissioner in charge of the overseas overseas voting. We already approved the additional 5 vote counting machines in addition to the existing 5. So wala na pong issue po in Hong Kong at this time.
All right. Thank you so much, COMELEC Commissioner Marlon Casqueo. Thank you, sir, for joining us. We'll take a quick break. This is Politics as Usual. Stay with us.